Alright, hello. This will be the first video of a series of video tutorial that I'm going to do to help people to speedrunning Silent Hill. I will cover everything in this series since the basics, from basics to routing to advanced strats and other categories. And this will be a quick video. This is the, the first video just for you to set up before um, running the game, and a few options that can make your life a little easier. The first thing that I would do, I would go into controller config, and I will change a few of the um, buttons here. So this is what your config should look like um, if you're playing the game on the NTSC version, on the American version. If you're playing in Japanese, there are a few small differences, but this is how it looks like, I think, in the beginning. So when you're speedrunning the game, you want to skip cutscenes fast, so you like it will be set to start by default. These are default options, so yeah, it will be set to start. You can leave it like that if you want, but I put the action button on skip as well. It makes skipping cutscenes easier, better. This is obviously preference. All of the buttons here are all of the button remap is just preference, really, and I tend to keep most of it as defaults. But a good thing would be removing the pause button. It doesn't help you at all during speedruns. Because pausing the game does not pause the game timer, and I'm going to talk about the game timer as well. So I just remove pause, and if you already know what to do and where to go, and I'm going to make the next video is going to be all about that. It's going to be about the routing and which room you should go next, essentially. So if you're comfortable with that, you should just remove the map. So you're left with this, and then I would recommend having your items. This is your inventory. This is the button that brings up the inventory. I would recommend having another button there as well instead of select, because if you're playing on DualShock, the select is pretty awkward to hit, you know, when you're playing the game. So since you don't have triangle set to anything, if you remove the map, set triangle to the map to the items as well, and this should help you. This is the config that I use, and you can change to whatever you want. Uh, Most of it is default, but I remove map and pause, and I set item to triangle, and I set skip to action, which in my case is the X. Um, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So this is just the basic controls. And now if you're in this option screen, and you press R1 or L1, it will bring the extra options. Now, if you don't have a New Game Plus file, those two options here, View Mode and Bullet Adjust, they will not be there because those are New Game Plus features. And because they are New Game Plus features, if you're playing any of the new game categories, which are currently on speedrun.com, including missed categories, New Game Easy, New Game Good Plus, New Game Good Plus Normal, and Knife Only. Those are the ones that does not. Those are not New Game Plus categories, which means that you can do those categories the first time that you play the game. New Game Plus, it's the subsequent playthrough. So, for example, the hidden UFO ending is New Game Plus content, as well as 10-star ranking. So for 10-star and UFO, those options are important to be turned on. and are accepted. But for any other category, you should, or any other non New Game Plus category, you should turn those off. So this is how it looks like when you turn those off. You need to have view mode as normal and bullet adjust times 1. Those options, they really help you. So to, in order for you to not have any advantage, you must turn those off. And blood color, you can set to whatever color you want. No big deal. Uh, I wouldn't recommend messing up with weapon control and view control. Retreat turn. Don't mess up with those options. Do not turn off auto aim. Just don't. This If you turn this off, this is going to basically make the game much worse. Because you're not aiming automatically at enemies, right? And yeah, do not turn this off, absolutely. And walk run control, this is the one that most people turn to reverse. I use it on normal, but that's just a personal preference. So if you select reverse, this is what happens when normally you would press square to run on default options, but with reverse walk run, you will press square to walk, and you will run by letting go of square, by not pressing anything. Most runners switch to reverse because then you don't have to hold both square and forward um, for most of the game, because most of the game you're going to be running, right? So most people turn to reverse, but I like normal. That's how I. This is again personal preference, but just a heads up before you start even learning the game, it can be helpful. Um, and yeah, turn those off, turn those options off, and walk around control can help you whatever you feel more comfortable with. Okay, those are the options. Uh, And I'm just going to go over the basics of the game. I'm going to just load a save file. But if you're speedrunning the game, I'm sure you are pretty familiar with it. So you should be pretty familiar with the controls, but I will talk about them anyway. So open the menu and have my trusty handgun here, right? So if you like on default options, or the options that I presented to you, if you push up, you can go forward, and by pushing up and left, or up and right, you can change. You can go into a certain direction like that. If you push action, which is X on my options, you can open doors and interact with items. So those are tank controls. So no matter where the camera is pointed at, up is always forward, down is always backwards, left is always Harry's left, and right is always Harry's left. Right. Tank controls, okay? So you can control Harry like this. You can also use the analog, but I don't recommend. You should really play this game on the E-pad. Analog is so bad to control Harry with the tank controls. And if you want to go up right, up left, it's kind of weird. It's kind of slow. In some rooms, it would be pretty important to use the analog though. But I will cover those rooms later on the other videos. So basic movement, square to run. If you're using reverse walk run, you will walk with square. Okay, and there you go. Up, forward, down, backwards. If you go down plus square, Harry jumps backwards like this. You can do it like that. And you can sidestep by pressing R1. You can sidestep to the right. You can sidestep to the left by pressing L1. You can strafe to the right by combining R1 plus square. You can this is self-view camera, so this is a little bit of an advantage, so you should turn this off, right? Let's turn it off. So when you turn it off, it will basically make the camera a little bit better, right? For you when you push L2 in defaults. With self-view, it basically gives you an over-the-shoulder camera, and that's self-view is not available the first time you play the game, so you turn it off for those categories. That's a category rule. When the camera is like this, a little weird. This is fixed camera angle, but well, using L2 or R2 really helps with the camera here. As you can see, I'm pushing L2. Did I say R2? I'm sorry. L2 really helps with your camera. It turns the camera essentially in Harry's direction. Otherwise, you would just have the camera in the same angle in most inside of the room. So yeah. And those are all of the movement and camera options. If you press circle, it turns on and it turns your flashlight on and off. And where are there no enemies here? I don't think I have the keys. Yeah, circle turns your flashlight on and off. I don't think I need to really demonstrate that. And oh, there's an enemy. Okay, I'll just go into an alley. Okay, so R2 aims at enemies in this game, right? And X is your action button, so when you're aiming at an enemy, you can shoot enemies like that. R2 plus X, right? And when an enemy is down, you can stomp on them to hit, deal the final blow. And one last thing, you can combo R1 and L1 together to make a quick turn. So Harry will turn like this. These are also tank controls. Alright. And a quick note, if you're using reverse walk run, make sure that you're pushing the square button, the walk input, when you are doing quick turns, because if you have a running input, so let's say if you have reverse walk run, the quick turn will be much more precise. You have to basically do in a smaller frame, in a smaller window of frames. So now I am pushing square, I have a running input, and the quick turn is more precise, but when I try to do like left and right, there's a good chance the Harry will strafe like that. Like I'm pushing them kind of together, but not really. But you can deal with, if you let go of running, you can push those like with a difference. You see, like this, and Harry will still quick turn. So it's less it's less precise basically. You have a bigger window to do them essentially. So yeah. So that's basic controls, basic movements on Silent Hill. If you're playing on speedrunning this game, you probably already know that. And another thing to note is that you should, most of the time, strafing like this is much slower than running like this. So it's not a good idea to try and strafe and go into running. See, there's a lot of delay between strafing and running. It's pretty rough. This is the first game in the series, so the controls are still a little unpolished compared to other Silent Hills, maybe to other Silent Hill games. But strafing is definitely much slower than running in most of the rooms and most of the time. So you should use run, turn and run for the most part. Turn and run, turn and run. One last thing about running is that if you're running for a big period of time and you let go forward, but you're still pushing square, Harry will stumble like this. You see, forward, square. But if you let go of square first, Harry would, he will come to a full stop. Um, so let me show you. Like, you're pushing square, and up, and if you let go of square before, you can get to a full stop, and that's pretty useful, right? Uh, but stumbling like this can be pretty useful in some rooms and some doors. But I'll get to the strats later. This was supposed to be a short video. It's already 15 minutes long, so yeah. This is just the basics of the controls and the basics of options, and I will soon make a video covering the routes, the entire route of the game. So, if you're new to speedrunning Silent Hill, the first thing that you want to know is where to go. So, I'll be doing that, and then I will cover the actual speedrunning strats and the advanced stuff that you can do in higher levels and mechanics and stuff like that. But for now, that's it. Thank you for watching, and I hope this is helpful. All right.